Welcome to On the Line. I'm Jenny Robb. Today we continue featuring Frank Giampaolo, the author of The Psychology of Tennis Parenting. There we go. Frank is internationally renowned as a coach, as a speaker, as a million other wonderful things. So Frank, we're so fortunate to have you with us today. Today we're going to dive into chapter 7.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's go for it, everybody.
So the title of chapter 7 is Sabotaging Athletic Performance. And the quote you use is discomfort leads to growth. So I love this. So kind of explain to us how you got to this chapter.
After teaching the high performance kids for, it's 30 years now for me. So it's been, I have a lot of experience with it. And most of the time what I find is that when kids lose, it's not the situation, it's not even the opponent. It's usually their own personal choices and habits that they make during the match that kind of sabotages their own performance. And so, yeah, this whole idea about, discomfort and improvement lies in their willingness to kind of leave their comfort zone behind and dive headfirst, into fear and things that are uncomfortable.
That's right.
And without jumping right back into what's comfortable. A lot of kids maybe dip their toe into it, but they don't really buy into it. But on the other side of that being uncomfortable phase, that's where the mastery of the skill lives.
That's right.
So
the first subtitle that you have is When Advice Creates Drama. And you write, the learning environment becomes more challenging when an athlete can't separate the role of a loving parent and a demanding coach. That's well said. The learning environment becomes more challenging. So that's what you were just alluding to. If there's a change, if there's a tweak to something, and you talked about buying in and a willingness to make a change. But especially with this statement involving the parent, the role of a parent and the role of a coach. And I've known quite a few parent coaches, as you certainly have, and that dual role is certainly challenging in itself. So tell us a little bit about this. When the learning environment becomes more challenging, when an athlete can't separate the role of a loving parent and a demanding coach.
Well, I think there gets to be a time where a parent coach, they have to be willing to step back and let their athletes hear different points of view, different perspectives, but most importantly, just different ways of selling the same information. Often we hear parents say, I told my kid that 1,000 times and right. He doesn't listen. Well, but maybe the parent was knocking on the wrong door the whole time. So instead of telling them what to do, if you're a parent, another door to try to enter would be to, instead of telling them what to do, ask them, what do they think they should do differently? And I think that's really important that, parents, I think, should really understand when you tell somebody what to do, that's a real extrinsic force, but it really challenges their ego. When you ask them, it's more intrinsic. So it kind of more challenges their decision-making abilities, and it makes them feel more accountable.
Yes.
So, you tell them, and then the ego comes into play. Absolutely. You ask them, and it doesn't, right?
Absolutely. So you go on to say the athlete's perceived lack of a consistent, caring parental relationship often instigates and prolongs dramatic coaching exchanges. The parent-coach dual role can make it more difficult for the athlete to regulate emotions, develop confidence, or build a trusting athlete coach bond. That's a whole lot in that statement.
It
So kind
is.
of break it down a little bit.
Well, I think that the when their development is not increasing every week, if they're not improving every week, now we have to all look back and step back and try to figure out what can we do to kickstart the momentum. And it's momentum stacking really that we're seeking, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And, yeah, so it's habit stacking, that type of thing. Often I think that parents, if you understand that there's so many very important job descriptions that you have, and being on the coach as a hitting coach might not be one of them. That's okay. Most of the pros on the tour have parents that are very involved. So without a parent like you, they have no hope. There's no way they can do it without a loving parent that's buying into the whole process. So they need you. And
right.
You know that, but I think if the parent understands that maybe they should step back and have their role be scheduling or logistics. It could even be even more important than the on-court hitting, but it could be encapsulating these life skills that their child needs to learn. They need to develop positive character traits, a moral compass, right?
Right.
Nobody's teaching that, and so parents take that role. Because honestly, you guys, and even intuitively, you guys know that without great perseverance and courage and resiliency, and without great time management, your kids are going to fall short. Right. So take life skills serious, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you have a great list here in this first section. Where you offer as a solution. And just as a side note, the way that you set it up in each chapter for those of you who have not gotten the book yet, here it is. Frank usually sets up the chapters with the subtitles and then a situation and then a solution. And so when we move into the solution to this first subtitle, you write, adjust your parental coaching role to keep the love of the sport and the love between you and your athlete alive. Your athlete will feel free to express their needs and wants without fearing losing their parents' love and respect. And so it just affirms what you were just talking about, how this dual role for parents, and there's already so many parental job descriptions, but then that freedom, I love the word free in there, that freedom for the athlete to not just say what they think their coach parent wants to hear or parrot back the idea, but the freedom to express their needs and wants without the fear of losing that loving parental relationship that all kids need. It just, to me, I think of a time that I was working with a kid, and the parent was also a coach, and we were good friends, and parent was a good player, had played in college, and was very involved. And it would get tricky at times when, say, the in this particular case that I'm remembering, that this child had split sets, was going into a third, and his parent and I are sitting together, and so it's time for someone to talk to the kid before the third set, and it's like I sort of looked at the parent, and the parent sort of looked at me, and we're looking at the player, and I go down there to speak through the fence to this player, but I noticed that he was kind of looking over my shoulder
Yeah.
at his parent there. And so I kind of realized, okay, he's actually probably not listening to anything I'm saying. He's actually kind of looking over at his parent. And so I kind of looked over and just waved the parent over, and I was like, hey, come on down. And so I kind of stepped back and watched the two of them interact. And I didn't have your handbook at that time, Frank. And so it was a tricky situation.
I bet.
And so navigating that, that's just from my perspective, but thinking of
Yeah.
the kid playing and the parent there, it got a little bit confusing. And so, ultimately, the kid that needs the advice wants to hear it from who he's basically trusting the most. Like you were talking about, like a willingness to listen and the willingness to take in what the parent coach, or me at that time as the other coach.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit about navigating an experience like that, where you have the
Yeah.
practice coach, I guess, is the parent, but then you have another coach, which during this time was me, and where that balance, trying to find that balance, it is it's a tricky path. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so help us out
Yeah.
with what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, it's a difficult situation, for sure. I think that's something that the parent and the coach and the athlete should talk about ahead of time, which would be pre-setting solutions, right? As to who's gonna coach, if it does get to a third set tiebreaker. And it's important, I think, for parents to realize that the athlete is almost emotionally hijacked at that stage. Going into that third set super tiebreaker, it's very challenging for them. So they really hear the sounds coming out of your mouth, but they don't really actively listen to the message.
Right.
So in my opinion, what I found that works for me anyway is I have the child take the really 2 or 3 slow, deep breaths. And I just say, look, just repeat after me. I'm going to give you 3 tips that'll help you win the match. And they're very simple, and you have to repeat them 3 times so I know that you digest it. So I would just say basic things like serve to the backhand, serve to the backhand, serve to the backhand.
Right.
And then maybe it might even be whatever the situation calls for, but it might be, approach their backhand,
Right.
just approach the backhand. And then keep deep balls deep. Just keep your deep balls deep. I make them repeat it calmly 3 times. And if we can be calm, it models their behavior to get calm. And if they can repeat it 3 times, they'll probably remember it.
That's right.
So anyway, it's a tough situation. And it's a learning curve for a lot of people, isn't it?
Definitely. So I think what you just said is so important to take in, from each role, each position,
Yeah.
as the parent, as the player, as a coach. And so I love that you say that, to have a routine in place ahead of time. So as you were saying, like the parent and I would know, if it gets into this third set situation where you can coach, what's best for the player, what to be able to kind of work that out ahead of time. It's interesting how we talk about it for the players. We talk about their rituals and routines, and there are rituals and routines for the coach and the parent as well, and that would be one of them. And so I think it's so important to address. And so thank you for that. It's so important because I feel like there really are a lot of parent coaches out there, as you were saying before. And so for everyone to be on the same page is just incredibly important.
Yeah. I just finished yesterday doing the high performance, the USTA thing with the kids going to, the hard courts. Anyway, one of the topics that the parents had, and I think at least half of the parents agreed with this, is should we stay and watch the match? And the answer is, if it helps, yes. If it hurts, no. And I think parents have to realize that if your child is looking over at you after every mistake, hoping you didn't catch it, or when you hit a big winner and hoping that they're pleasing you,
Right.
Then they're playing two matches simultaneously. One, they're trying to please the parent and try not to get in trouble, while they're also trying to, beat a tough opponent in a gold ball event. That's difficult.
Yep. Absolutely. So, yep.
Parents, I think if you find that they're reacting negatively to you watching, try not to be confrontational and say, well, you don't even want me there. And just say, look, I have a lot of work to do. We're really busy. I'm going to be sitting in the car and I'm in the parking lot. Come get me if you need me. But I'm not going to be able to watch for the next couple of weeks because I have a lot of work to do. And now that the athletes, left to their own devices, right?
Which encourages it encourages the athlete to, we go back to that word freedom, or I do. And, and it's a freedom for them to make decisions. It's a freedom to figure out, whatever the challenge in front of them is, without constantly looking over at that parent. And I think it is very freeing for the parent as well to not be hanging on every point necessarily. If the parent says, hey, I'm going to be in the car, I'm here if you need me. So it's that they're still saying, I'm here, I'm supporting you, I'm here if you need me. But also a level of trust of, I trust that you're going to make good decisions. I trust.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, beautifully said. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, that freedom basically is what.
Yeah. And you're teaching them also that blame shifting is not a really terrific character trait. So, you hear kids, and I hear it a lot, that go, well, my dad shook his head when it was 3-3 in the second set, and that's why I lost.
Right.
But obviously there are some parents that, cling onto the fence and they're yelling and screaming through the fence. That's right. That's a different animal though, right?
Right. Yes, definitely. So the next section in chapter 7 is suffering defeat times 3. And this is something that we have addressed before, but you write, 1 is the initial defeat itself, 2 is going over it again in the car ride home, and then 3, if the parent is debriefing the coach at the next lesson. And so it's like over and over and over, the player is feeling that defeat, the sting of that hurts. So you say in the book, suffering 3 separate times for each loss is something no athlete should have to endure. So let's dig a little deeper into that idea.
Well, it does affect the athlete, right? And all the words that parents say, they really buy into it.
Yep.
And so if your backhand, if they're hearing, sometimes what you say is not what they actually hear, but if they perceive that you're saying your backhand stinks, what are they going to think in the next match when they have to hit a backhand down the line passing shot? They're not going to have very much confidence in these skills, that if we're giving them a laundry list of all the reasons why they're broken,
that's right,
they're going to believe they're broken, really. But nowadays, even the athletes, they suffer the same defeat 4 times. Because as soon as they get off the court, they go get on their phone and they get on social media and UTR, and everybody knows who won or lost within,
That's right.
20 minutes.
That's
And
right.
so it's not like the old days, man. They all know.
I'm so
So
glad you brought that up, because that is a point that definitely is a meaningful thing to think about. Like we've already said, the initial defeat itself, and then if you're rehashing everything on the car ride home, and if, especially if that's in a negative light, and then again to the coach during the lesson time. But like you're saying, it's a whole nother dimension with social media, when
yeah,
people can put out there what just happened instantaneously. And also, like you said, with UTR, where the ratings are fluid and you can see it immediately. Yeah, I mean, that's something that is relatively new for players
yeah,
to have to add to their burden, so to speak. That players in previous generations didn't necessarily have to take into account, but it's definitely
yeah.
such an important part today.
Yeah. And you remember we talk a lot about this in the book, with athletes controlling what they can control. And I think parents have that same responsibility. So they can't control the first loss. It happens on court. The second loss, which is the post-match bantering, they can control that, right? They
Mhm.
can observe and even ask the athlete, when are they emotionally stable to talk about the match? Because we have to decompress after stress, right? We have to
Right.
give them
Right.
time to digest.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
sometimes people get them in the car, right in the parking lot at the club, and you see them yelling at their kid. And so probably it's not in your best interest. With these post-match dialogues, remember that ask, don't tell. So what were you feeling at this stage? And what would you do differently if you got to do that all over again? And then, like, can I share some of the observations from the sidelines? And if I were the parent nowadays, I would just have the athlete write down 3 topics they did well, 3 topics they didn't do well in every match, and then text that to the coach every Sunday, right at the end of the
Right.
tournament.
Right.
And
Right.
parents can do the same thing. The parents write down don't write a whole book, respect your coach's time, but write the 3 things your athlete did really well, and then just type in on your phone 3 things they didn't do that well. Maybe you want them to focus on in the next week. Just text it to the hitting coach.
Right.
So
Right.
um,
You know,
that way you don't even have to do the third banter, right? Where they ask the
right.
parent walks on the court, right, and embarrasses the athlete by talking about all the things they did wrong. So I guess there's 2 of those you can alleviate right now.
And so in your solution, just affirming what you already said just now, you're right. Begin with setting boundaries regarding when and where match reviews take place. And so you just alluded to that beautifully when you start saying, okay, this amount of time, we're not going to tackle this right now, take into, like you're saying, take into the account the emotional place that the player is in. And so again, as you've said before, one of the parental roles is sort of meeting the player, the child, meeting them where they are, versus
Yeah.
where you might be. And so I think that's an important part of, how many times the player has to suffer that defeat.
Yeah, it is sometimes though time sensitive, right? Like often they might win a match and it was maybe a difficult match, and they have to play again in an hour and a half. So you might have to debrief sooner, or maybe they're going into the back draw and you have to debrief sooner. I also would recommend don't call the second the back draw. Don't call that like the loser's draw or the back
Right.
draw. Just call it the second tournament of the weekend, because you
Oh,
still get rating and ranking points in these things. So
that's right.
I think it's meaningful that kids don't view it as, oh, I'm in the loser's draw. I'm
Yeah.
just in this now.
How
I'm in
you
the second
frame it.
tournament. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's reframing.
How do you frame it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes to, and you mentioned this earlier, but you say, okay, the next section is life skills through tennis. And
Mm.
you say, most often sports don't teach life skills, they expose them. Competition reveals underdeveloped life skills. The athlete has to be taught how to improve that individual skill set. So
Mm.
let's again get deeper into that. There's a lot there.
Yeah. Well, it isn't it. But one thing you guys know, and intuitively, we all know that college coaches don't just seek an athlete with a good backhand, right? But they want to make their job as peaceful and easy as possible.
Right.
And having one crazy negative character on the team can kind of destroy the whole team atmosphere.
Yep.
So they really take this part seriously. They look at the life skills and the character traits of the and that so of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when my daughter went to play at USC, the both coaches came over, multiple times and had dinner at the house, and they want to see the family atmosphere.
Yep.
They want to see what they're getting into.
All those different
right?
Dynamics. Yes, they want to see the different dynamics for sure.
Yeah.
This is just an aside, but a friend of mine that's been in the college coaching world, who before getting into the college coaching world had been a club pro, and the one of the few times that we spoke about his transition from being in a club to being a college coach, and it was something I had never thought about really. And he said, well, as a club pro, I'm getting paid by the client, and as a college coach, I'm the one controlling the money. I'm the one giving the money instead of I'm the one receiving the money. And I had never thought of that perspective before.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Boy, there's some freedom right there that now he can say, exactly what he wants to say, where often, a country club coach or a private coach has to really be careful, because sometimes the parents are unknowingly sabotaging the child's mental skills, but the parents are the one paying the coach.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine going to your boss saying, look, man, it's your fault.
Right.
You get fired in a second in the real world.
That's right. So those different dynamics,
Yeah.
definitely don't play a part in the whole journey. You go on to say in the solution section of this segment of the chapter that psychosocial competence or life skills are abilities and behaviors that enable athletes to deal with the demands and challenges of competition on and off the tennis court. Be mindful of who's developing the character traits of your child daily. The type of individual your child becomes is dictated by who is nurturing them. That's huge.
Well, that's well said. Let me just say it.
I was reading straight out of the book there. So,
oh, way to go. Well, look, I think parents, that once they have pretty solid mechanical strokes, and not perfect, nobody's perfect, but they're pretty efficient. Once they have strokes, the winning in matches depends on courage, resiliency,
yes,
being able to reset at the moment and handle adversity, right? And these are all the life skills. And I would even do this if I was a parent in these days. I would just Google important life skills, go through the list with your child, circle every one that you both think is weak.
Right.
And then it's your child's job to do research and development. They have to Google whatever. They have to Google perseverance.
Yes. Okay.
Write their own definition and how they're going to overcome it and improve it. And boy, that would be a wonderful job for tennis parents.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I love there at the end, so it says the type of individual your child becomes is dictated by who is nurturing them. And,
Sorry.
it's similar. Oh, it's similar to, I've heard, you're going to be more like the people that you spend the most time with, like the 5 people that you're around the most, you're going
Yeah.
to be reflecting, that relationship. And so I think it goes to, again, like as we've spoken about before, how important it is for this relationship between the parent, the coach, and the child to, in order to just work at even a basic level, that communication has to be there. And, the values,
Mhm.
between the 3 places is so important, because that player is, spending a whole lot of time
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that coach. And so it's important to evaluate who are the people that are influencing your child. And as a parent, that's a tough add when you're looking for that other coach. You have to be able to find
Yeah.
someone that you gel with or communicate with or share the same values, or trust, all those things to make the relationship work.
It got, especially in, the smaller towns and communities across the country.
Mhm.
At first, when your child gets into tennis, we just put him into a tennis clinic that's the closest one to our house, right? That's the whole issue. We just find
Yeah,
something close. But
convenience.
now
Yeah.
they get a little bit, they're more advanced and they're really
Yep.
seeking maybe even to play college ball. A lot of coaching now is just done through Zoom.
Right.
So most of the clients I work with nowadays, it's Zoom sessions. So, and there's a lot of match play video analysis and even stroke video analysis that we do. But yeah, don't feel like it's stuck in that your coaching options are stuck in your town. There's a lot of great coaches out there. So
Yep.
yeah,
No,
seek
so
them
so
out.
important. And that leads right into, so the next section of chapter 7, you have the subtitle of knowledge versus wisdom.
Mm,
And those are 2 words that come with a lot of,
yeah,
what makes you believe what those words are about, and you go on to say, one who understands what to say has knowledge, one who understands when to say it, that's wisdom.
yeah,
And so, um again, sort of an aside here, but if you're familiar at all with the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things
yeah.
I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm,
I'm kind of like, wow, that was, my antennas went up, and I was like, yes, the difference there, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I think that applies well to
it
this
sure does. Wow.
situation.
I think, Paris, from your side with that topic, knowing when to pick a battle is important. So, as you're driving your athletes to tennis practice, that's not the time to start to banter about their poor grades or how they're misbehaving at home.
Right.
Once you get your athlete into this catastrophic negative mindset, it sabotages the lesson coming up. And same thing applies before matches, right? You're not you're not really supposed to talk about outcome desires and what your UTR is going to be if you win and what it's going to be if you lose. And it's very important that knowing when to talk about topics. So just keep that in the back of your mind, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you go on to say in this section, again, this section is knowledge versus wisdom. You say there are obstacles to communication, between a parent, coach, and the young athlete. So of course there's always going to be obstacles, so it gets into what we were just talking about, how finding that coach, which it might evolve from, the most convenient program, the one that fits in the schedule, which is important, of course. But then moving on from that, if the child, you want to move to a next spot, you might have to consider making a change. And that can be hard, but finding that right fit is incredibly important.
Yeah, it really is. And I think with this topic, and I know we've talked about this in the past, but choosing optimism and choosing to focus on the things your athlete is doing right will promote them to do more right things.
Right.
And if you're choosing to focus on everything your child's doing wrong, it really does kind of sabotage their will to keep improving.
Yep.
So, and imagine if every day you go to work and at the end of the day, your boss comes in and goes, now here's the 9 things you did wrong today, Harold. That would be like devastating to work in that environment. But
absolutely,
parents do that to their kids after they play. And so be careful. I mean, I'm sure the parents are aware, but about 70% of all the athletes that play sports, every sport, they quit by the early teens. They quit playing sports.
Yep.
And across the board in every sport, the number one first reason was crazy parents.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's out there. So it might not be you, and I'm probably the people that are listening to this are not in that boat. To me, the craziest ones don't have any interest in learning, and they're not probably listening to this.
Right? That's right.
Sort of they already know. They know it all.
Yeah, preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
So I love the word awareness. We've talked about awareness before, but you go on in the book to say awareness of the athlete's attention, lack of interest, or difference in opinion is a start. Before any educational or motivational lecture begins, think about what is happening in their world. And you go on to list, children often don't hear the message you're attempting to send. They tend to magnify the negatives and quickly forget the positives. And you say children tend to pick up nonverbal clues and tone of voice before the content of your insightful tip. So think about how and when you're delivering your message. And it all starts with the very first word in that whole thing, that with awareness.
Yeah. Awareness.
And so
be aware of their own tone of voice and whether they're positive or negative. And you can do something that's a little bit tricky, but next time you have a tennis discussion, just take your cell phone on the side and just press record, and with the audio dictation app, and record the whole conversation.
Yep.
And not to accuse anybody of anything, but to listen to your own tone of voice, how many positives versus negative statements you're saying. And obviously, because you're aware that you're recording, it might be a little bit different, but you'll still pick up some. And that helped me a lot when I was younger.
I mean, you might surprise yourself. You might. Oh, when I was in that moment, that is not how I perceived how things went. And so looking back, you go, wait, that's not what I meant, Yeah. So what you're saying, there's so much validity there to, again, awareness of the parent of going, okay, am I aware of the mental, emotional, physical state of the player? And then am I aware of my own emotional state, and how the message is going to come across, whether with that tone, like you're saying, the time, the tone, all these things. And so when you get into the solution section of this subtitle, you say wisdom involves locking into the listener's needs, an emotional perspective before communication begins. So again, getting into their world. And then
Yes.
you can say, focus on giving without expecting, argue less, stop comparing your child with their peers, avoid participating in gossip, eliminate judgment, and choose not to live vicariously through your child. That's a great list of a lot of big topics.
That does have a lot of big topics, and it's not easy. It's
No,
not, they're all natural human behaviors, right?
right. That's right. And that's so important to point out because, again, like we have said, I think in every episode, we're here to, the reason that we're doing all this, the reason you wrote the book, and I'd rather hear it from you than from me, but, is we're here to help the parents. We're not against the parents. So often the bad rap, or avoidance, it comes into play. And really, as we know, as you point out with the book, is for the best chance of success, that the parent, the coach, and the player need to have a good dichotomy, a good working relationship to be able to reach the goals and the things that the player wants to do. So I just love, you say, like I said, I'll repeat, wisdom involves locking into the listener's needs and emotional perspective before communication begins. And I think that again, it goes beyond just a player coming off the court, in life.
Yes.
In life, this definitely applies.
Yeah. It's the routines and rituals that they're gonna model. They're gonna copy these things, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Anyway, look deeper into that. I think that would be meaningful. And
yes, I mean, we could do a whole podcast just on that. This one, I'll repeat it real quick, but focus on giving without expecting, argue less, stop comparing your child with their peers, avoid participating in gossip, eliminate judgment, and choose not to live vicariously through your child. We could do a whole segment on that. But moving on, staying in this chapter 7, the subtitle of this next section is Discomfort is Good. And that's something you alluded to right at the beginning of the discussion, where you say discomfort is the first sign of progress in the realm of athletic development. Temporary discomfort creates growth. And it feels like we should know that, but seeing it in black and white and saying it out loud kind of brings it a little more into, again, perspective and awareness of, willingness. We've talked about that word, but how you respond to discomfort, how the player responds to discomfort, how the parent responds to discomfort, the coach as well. So this idea in this section of discomfort is good, that's a big, I don't know if obstacle is the right word, but it's a big thing to cross, of how you respond to discomfort. So yeah, let's tell us a little bit more about how discomfort is good.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, this is kind of a light bulb kind of moment. One of those times where, as you get older, we all slip into the choice that comfort is good. We want a comfortable home, right, and a comfortable car and comfortable job, and so we want all the comforts. But we forget that if you're trying to be a world-class athlete, a top collegiate athlete, it's not about comfort right now. It's about seeking discomfort, because that's where growth lives and improvement lives. And we know that really the parents that focus on growth and improvement every week, not the outcomes, they're not trying to achieve more trophies, really. They're not accumulating that. They're trying to achieve growth.
That's right.
Growth. Right? So, whether it's strokes or athleticism or even the mental or emotional skills. Um, Typically, I think everybody knows too that typically uh, athletes and most coaches choose to focus on the hardware, right? So the strokes and the athleticism,
Right.
which happens for 3 or 4 seconds, but they don't work on the software, mental and emotional,
Right.
and that's
Right.
the 20 seconds in between, and that's uncomfortable. It's not comfortable for coaches to work on that because they're not familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just comfortable feeding balls to the backhand and rallying and tweaking strokes, which we all need that. We need good strokes, but it goes deeper than that. So even with myself trying to create these books for parents, it really just helps me learn. And, the more you try to teach a topic, the more you learn, right?
That's right. And just as a quick side note, obviously we've been going through the psychology of tennis parenting. But Frank has authored other best-selling books as far as the Tennis Parents Bible. And coming soon, breaking news here first. Frank has in production a set of what we're referring to right now as an encyclopedia. And so expanding on the idea of a guide, because navigating this journey is a big undertaking, such a big undertaking. So be on the lookout because soon we will be talking about expanding on these ideas and delving deeper. But back to the content right here at hand, in your solution section of this chapter, you say athletes can expand their comfort zone only by first experiencing discomfort. And so that's what we were just alluding to, saying, that's how you stretch the comfort zone. You start here and then it's comfortable. Then what's uncomfortable gets comfortable. And then you have to get a little further. It's funny, quick story, a player that I had worked with when they were in juniors, and could have played some smaller school college ball, but chose to not pursue that. Came back and said, hey, wanted to get on the book and let's have a lesson or some time, whatever, for practice. And we get out there and we are starting to look at her serve. And I was starting to say some things, little tweaks here and there to try. And she turned around and looked at me and she goes, is this new? Is this new stuff? Because, and I was like, well, not necessarily, but so it just, I had gotten the impression that where she was, she just wanted to get out and hit some balls. When I started to say, well, maybe try this or let's maybe do that, she was like, whoa, is this new stuff? Like,
Isn't that great?
It was so funny. I have such a visceral response, even thinking about it now, that like I had not until that point realized that she wanted to hit some balls. She get in a groove, get in a rhythm, good workout, but the idea of introducing something new at that point, there was no interest there. And that's okay. I mean, that's okay, but you have to know it. And so then I had to switch gears in my mind, like, oh, okay, yeah, she's not here to get from A to B. She's here to just get a good, do happy where she is. But let's get in a good hit.
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes they just want to groove and sweat, and a lot of times you're right. Though I hear it, athletes come out and they go, "I really need to improve, but don't change my game."
Right.
And you're like, "Oh boy."
That's
it's fear, it's fear of losing.
Absolutely, it's fear, yes.
But that's fine.
it goes right into the next section, which you have the subtitle of, and I love this part. What ifs? So you say
Mm.
peak performance in sports occurs when the athlete has a relaxed mental state and heart rate and a feeling of calm, controlled aggression. That's a great sentence.
Mm.
So the idea of peak performance and the idea of a relaxed mental state, heart rate, a feeling of calm, and then the idea of controlled aggression. That's such a good recipe for general success on a tennis court.
Yeah, whenever we're under pressure, it's all about letting the subconscious mind drive the ship,
Yep.
and your conscious editing judgmental mind is not invited. And so it's a tough thing. It's an inner battle to keep that away, right?
Right.
Keep the judgmental mind at bay. It's hard to do.
It is hard to do. It's definitely hard to do. And so you go on to say overthinking about the what ifs is toxic because they contaminate the mind with swirling unwanted thoughts. And I'm like, me.
Everybody, we're all like that.
I read that and I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Overthinking the what ifs.
Yeah.
Yeah, contaminating the mind with swirling unwanted thoughts. It's like, I've been there.
What did you? I've read this, and I think one of the psychology magazines, but most people have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day.
Wow. Okay.
And so we're trying to tell athletes, look, you're going to play 2 matches a day in this tournament. It's an average 130 points a match. So for 260 points. So, for about 3 hours, we want you to focus on 6 performance goals. That is so hard to do.
That's so hard. Yeah.
Oy.
Definitely a hard thing to do. And you go on to say in this section that athletes who worry about outcome consequences during the match lose focus on their game plan and get in the way of their performance. So I love that sentence because there's certainly been so many times when I've been watching a match and I'm like, gosh, they can't get out of their own way, and so I think the idea of, yes, oh, I don't want to lose to this person, or, oh, I'm winning, I'm doing great. And, picturing yourself holding a trophy, or, so both sides of that coin, overthinking the what ifs, what if I lose? What if I win? But I like that you use the word toxic because they contaminate. I think contaminate is a great word. The mind with swirling unwanted thoughts. And so going back to the other word I love, awareness, your awareness can be contaminated by their perception of the performance. And so that's some pretty deep stuff. I love it, but that's some pretty deep stuff. So describe that a little bit more about, I'll read it one more time. So overthinking about the what ifs is toxic because they contaminate the mind with swirling unwanted thoughts. Athletes who worry about outcome consequences during the match lose focus on their game plan and get in the way of their performance.
Well, a simple way to think about this topic is that there's something called channel capacity, right, with neuroscience. And all that means really is that the human brain can't really focus on 2 complicated tasks simultaneously. It's like, it's why we're supposed to text and drive.
Right. Okay.
So if our athletes are in 2 different worlds, like if you imagine like remote control for the TV, if they're on a channel of all the what ifs, what if I win? What if I lose? Where's the trophy going in my room? What are my friends going to say? If they're in that channel, now they're not in their performance goal frame of mind channel, which is, how do I win this point right now? And so really what's happening is they're shifting back and forth from these 2 very different channels. And this is why mental training is really important, because
Right.
we've all seen it. And I've heard a million parents say they don't lose to the opponent, man. They just beat themselves all the time. My
Yeah.
kid beat herself, that kind of thing, right?
Yep. Yep. All
And
the time. Hear it
talking
all.
about
Yep.
like,
So that beautifully takes us into, again, the way that you frame these chapters. And so going into the solution segment here, you say, educate your athlete to shift from a worrier mindset to a warrior mindset. Of course, as the English major nerd that I am, I love plays on words like that. But the shift, the shift from a worrier mindset to a warrior mindset. You say shifting to a warrior mindset begins and ends with better rituals. And you go into internal and external, whether in between points you're external, like what I would do, I would walk back towards the fence.
yeah.
Whether I needed to towel off or not, I'm going to go to my towel. I'm going to look at the strings of my racket. Even if they haven't moved, I'm going to look at the strings, go to the towel, go to the strings. Those are external things. Deep breaths.
Yeah.
Internal, you're talking about self-awareness, opponent awareness, score management, the list goes on. And so even in these small segments of time during the match, I love that you start out, the very first word is educate. He said, educate your athlete to shift from a warrior mindset to a warrior mindset. And then we go into what that means externally and internally. And I just love that.
Well, isn't it meaningful to you that the parents have to avoid being somebody that's an excessive worrier? Because if the parents are worrying, they really promote that.
Yep.
And kids start to worry because they're going to model you, right?
You can feel the energy. There's energy that gives off.
Yeah, right on. So, yeah, it is a mind shift. It happens way before matches start. That's why it's important too that we don't allow our kids to go hang out and socialize right before their match,
right?
Because they're morphing into a warrior. And before matches, right? They want that mindset, of.
I think it's rugby in New Zealand. So I'm outside of my normal realm here, but before a rugby match, they do the haka. Am I saying that right?
The All Blacks, yeah.
Yes, the All Blacks. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking. They have this ritual, and when I think of a warrior, I'm like, wow, the way that they stomp and the way that they're, I don't know if screaming's not the right word, but how they're, out there, if I was on the other team and didn't know that they did this, I'd be scared to death.
Very intimidating, isn't it?
I mean, the way Nadal would go out before a match, how he would sprint out onto the court and he brings this energy, and that can be so intimidating. And it's like, how do you respond to it? Do you kind of want to bounce around a little bit? So now you're changing what your normal routine is, or you kind of just go like, oh no, like.
Well, I think that energy is, remember, is customized to each individual. Some people might play way better, maybe like a Roger Federer, who's just chill, and he was just like calm. And then the polar opposite was a Rafael Nadal, right? And like if you watch, there's a YouTube, he's jumping up and down in the locker room and he hits his head on the roof.
There's one, yeah, I've seen that one. That's right.
And that was a long way up. I mean, this guy can jump, but yeah.
The whole idea isn't one of his nicknames like the Toro, so when you think of like Spain and like the running of the bulls and that there's a whole lot of just masculinity for their part because they're men, but there's a whole lot of energy there that's so different, like you said, like Federer seems like the chill, like the James Bond, you know,
Yeah, right,
guy
right.
kind of strolling in, and then you have Rafa, who's coming out like a bull, you know. So, and they've both obviously achieved incredible success. So, you know, you have to find what works for you.
That's
What's
right.
your zen? You know, like
That's,
what's your zen? Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, right on. Well, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to fight these internal battles of where is your mind wandering off to? Is it wandering to the past or the future, or is it really staying in the present? And the key is, as you guys know, is that the top players that win the close matches and the add in add outs, those big mega points, they're the ones that kind of manage their mindset more. They're in the here and now, and
Yeah.
the intermediates are kind of somewhere else, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, you finish off this section in the book, you say mentally tough competitors keep their minds full of strategic intentions, not drifting into the what ifs. And that's so beautifully stated. I mean, the strategic intentions, I mean, so if you're training your mind to
Yes.
go to strategy versus, well, what if this happens? And
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of training. That doesn't just necessarily happen naturally. That
No,
somebody
I don't.
think,
I think it's all you're.
this is happening and that. So if this,
Yeah,
then that. You know,
and these are all learned behaviors. And the sad part is the poor choices and habits are learned behaviors too. And once they get ingrained, it's extremely difficult to reroute bad habits like this. So it takes a little bit of time. Usually takes 2 or 3 months for an athlete to reroute their mental or emotional skills too. So we have to be patient. We have to give it time. That's
definitely.
important.
Yep. And so your final subtitle here, this section, you call visiting their peak level. This one's so much fun because I think whatever sport, if you've been an athlete,
Yeah.
in whatever situation, whatever sport you were in, this happens, you know. So you say athletes visiting their peak performance level is the first experience playing free from judgment and worry. So again, that idea of freedom, that idea of,
Yeah.
you know, kind of swinging away or yeah, but free from judgment and worry. When you, that peak performance, say, you know, some people will say, you know, you're in the zone or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. But so yeah, so take us through how you got to this idea of visiting peak level.
Well, we all see it. We see it with our athletes. We maybe even see it when we play or used to play, that
Mhm.
you can visit your peak performance level. But usually once you're in it, oddly enough, we pull our own selves out of it by
Right,
judging, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this great. How do I keep on? What can I do to make sure this happens all the time?
right,
And
right.
that turns on your judgmental mind, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But how many times have you guys like hit an ace and then you go, dang, I got to see this. And now you look down to see it and you double fault. And the very next point,
You know, I've always felt that I could more easily shrug off mistakes than I could shrug off when I impressed myself.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I think I spent more time training to let points go, let a mistake go. That was more prevalent than in my training to, if I hit a winner and something unexpectedly good happened, I wasn't quite as adept at dealing with impressing myself versus disappointing myself.
yeah, yeah, right on.
You know, and
Yeah.
so I would try to, you know, do that again. Be like, oh well, that was cool. I want to do that again. Nope. That didn't
Well,
work.
usually, yeah, when you know, which is always fun, but I pretty much suspect you're I would say close to ENFP personality profile when they talk about Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
And with that profile, you guys can play like once you really feel like it and you want to play like divine intervention, you're playing like a tennis god. But then as soon as you get bored, right, then crap hits the fan.
Blink. I'd be like,
Ain't it for a lot of people.
I can
But
think of a specific match where it was so lopsided. It was so bizarre. It was like, go out there. I lost the first set, 0-6. Then I kind of reset and I won the next set 6-0. And so completely lopsided. And I knew I was tense in the first set and I knew I wasn't performing. And then in the second set, it was like lights out, I don't even know how I'm doing stuff I'm doing. And so then going into the third set, there was so much that was convoluted in my mind. It was like, I don't know if I can recreate that shot that I somehow came up with, but I don't want to tighten up and not be able to hit like I started this match. I mean, it was a mess. But I mean, it was such a mess, but I actually won that match. And I bring this up in regards to this section because it didn't have anything to do with the physical. Going into that 10-point tiebreaker for the third set, a lot of times the person that wins the second set, I mean, you've seen this a million times, then loses the tiebreak because they were playing from behind the whole time. So they're focused the whole time, and then they even out the match, and then they go, okay.
Yeah.
So they relax a little bit, and then that person that won the first set and lost the second set, now they're like recharged.
Yeah.
So it goes back to, we talked a lot in the last chapter about momentum, those shifts of momentum. And so with this, thinking, okay, it goes again, awareness, like what was I doing before? What was working? What was not working? What was happening this during that, and how to approach this last set. And it was funny starting out the tie break. This other lady and I were both so nervous. We were both like barely hitting the ball, And so it's like we'd played these two crazy sets where she came out and just could not miss. And then in the second set, like I said, I'm impressing myself. And then we get to the third and we're like playing mini tennis out there. Like, exactly. And so those momentum shifts, these ideas of responding to the pressures of the setting, the two different matches, the physical match, the mental emotional match. I mean, that all comes into play. I mean, in this section, when you get to the solution part, you say your athlete's self-perception is forming, and it's the parental job to help assist their view. I love that. So your athlete's self-perception is forming, and it's the parental job to help assist their view. And so it goes back to earlier, you were saying, if the parent's just harping on your backhand stinks, then the player's going to hear my backhand stinks. And so in the pressure situation, you're like, well, my backhand stinks. I can't trust that backhand. So taking it back to the parental role here is, how do you help form that self-perception? And it goes back to the idea of wisdom, knowledge and wisdom. So if a parent is aware of how their child reacts in different situations, and they can help mold that self-perception, you can turn it in a good way or in a bad way. That's probably a little too simplistic, but I don't know if parents and coaches for that matter, but definitely parents, if they realize just how much they are assisting in the athletes forming that self-perception, just how much input the parent has in that. And it's huge.
Yeah. Well, they have a big influence because, if we all get 168 hours a week, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, even the top athletes train around 20 hours a week. So that how many hours does the athlete have with you, the parents and the family?
Right.
So
Right.
obviously, 100 hours maybe, depending on the school schedule and all that. But I think with perception of match play, we have to try to educate our athletes that they shouldn't be afraid of missing. They shouldn't be afraid of losing.
Right. Right.
Their whole issue really is just hit the shot the moment demands. If you make good mistakes, which is making the correct mistake, you should be going for that shot anyway. That's fine. But if, making bad mistakes is obviously doing the opposite, right? That's when they're hitting reckless and they're a little wacky. But on the other side too, that it's our goal to try to get our kids now at this higher level to take this idea about being good after good and start to take that deeper and deeper. So at first, good after good is just, when athletes begin, when you started to play, it's, can you do a good stroke good after good? Then they start to compete. Can you play a good point good after good? Can you play 2 sets good after good? Can you play 2 matches good after good? And so can they repeat it? And that's what actually makes them actually great, is can they repeat it over and over instead of just visiting it once in a while? So
yeah, absolutely. That goes back into just one of the chapters we just did where you're talking about stacking momentum.
Yes.
How do you stack momentum? And that is so key to what you were just saying. But you finish out this final solution section saying athletes cannot outperform their belief system. And I love the simplicity in that statement of just because it's true. Again, this is one of the things that's true to tennis, but in the greater world of, your belief system,
Yes.
and parents have probably the one of at least the, if not the greatest role in molding their child's belief system, belief in themselves, beliefs in what they can do, beliefs in their training, their preparation. And so the idea that athletes cannot outperform their belief system, it's kind of another one of those things that you go, okay, I kind of had this funny idea that yes, but then when you just say it just plainly like this, athletes cannot outperform their belief system. I'm like, oh yeah, and you watch it at the pro levels when even at Wimbledon, when Djokovic lost, he just lost in the final.
That one swing volley that he didn't
exactly
hesitated on one, and that cost him probably.
Right. But for the other player going up against Djokovic, you have to believe that you can win.
Yeah.
If you go out there and you don't believe you can win, what are you really doing? You're only reinforcing the fact that you believe that you're not going to win. If you play right into whether it was, people feared Serena, people feared Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, these things. But then when there's that breakthrough, I mean, I remember when way back when Andy Roddick beat Sampras, and it was sort of hailed in the press as, oh, this changing of the guard, and so the idea that a very young Andy Roddick could come out and win against Pete Sampras, he had to have a belief that he could. And so this statement that athletes cannot outperform their belief system, I mean, that was sort of the light bulb that went off for me. I was like, I remember watching that match on TV when Andy Roddick beat, Pete Sampras, and I was like, what? You know, but when you start to see these, and we're in a unique position right now with American tennis on the men's and women's sides, where you're starting to see some of these younger people break through, and again, just watching Wimbledon and then following statistics on Twitter or whatever, or they're saying, it's been this many years since somebody that wasn't named, Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic or Andy Murray was in there, or one, but to have that belief that you're going to walk out there, and these guys have been dominating the game for so long, but somewhere in there, you have to believe that you can do it. And so where does that come from? And so I think it fits into what you're saying in this section, that is another one of the parental job descriptions, is molding that belief.
Yeah. And I'll give you just a couple of my opinions on that, because I think it's probably one of the most important topics when it comes to tennis. We know that a lot of tennis matches are won or lost before a single point is played, right?
Right.
A lot of athletes go, look, that girl beat my friend Kelly and beat my friend Zoe, and if I can just get 3 games, I'm happy. So she's already presetting that she's probably not going to win, right? I think we have to get our athletes too, but our parents as well, to reframe that success is any athlete just playing at their peak performance level for the duration of a whole match. And if you can exceed your peak performance level, that's even better, but winning or losing is irrelevant.
That's right.
And it's hard to do. I'll give you an example. I was working with a gymnast, and she was totally petrified about the event. And we worked for about 2 weeks on her mental, emotional skills. And it was in New York City. I think it was even Madison Square Garden, but she did this big national event, which is, just getting in was amazing for most people. And the highest she ever scored at a national, I think, was 8.0. The judges hold up the cards. So she goes in, she gets an 8.6.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she's happy. Oh my God.
Right. Exceeding expectations.
Now, the very next day, a Russian girl gets like a 9.4 and wins the whole event. Well, does that mean that our girl didn't succeed? No, she totally did, because she got an
8.6, a personal best. What they call the PB. You get your personal best. Yeah,
that's right. So anyway, that's kind of I think a key with our parents is to try to get your athletes to think about staying in their peak performance level and how can they manage the momentum. And one of the easy ways to do it is if they can just take paper or any kind of paper, but they just do what's called a line chart. So all you're going to do is the start of every set. If your player wins a point, you go up. If they lose a point, you go down. If they win a point, go up. Win a point, go up. Lose a point, go down.
Okay.
Lose a point. And anyways, if you do that to the course of the match, you really see the roller coaster ride that a lot of athletes take, where they are in momentum for a couple, but they're downward negative momentum, and they can visually see their momentum shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for kids to realize that.
I've never charted a match that way. There's so many different ways to chart a match, and I hope at some point, because I know you have some fantastic charting ideas, and so we should go through that at some point. But I love match charting, but I've never done it that way, like the up and down. That is very interesting.
To me, it's a meaningful one on this topic anyway. But every chart is customized to the needs of the athlete at that certain stage. So, look, it's a long ride. It's a beautiful, fun ride. Yep. And when you're in it, it could be an emotional roller coaster for you as parents, because you're ecstatic. You're just so happy. You're athlete performed and won this match, and then 2 hours later they play like a toad and they lose some, and so now you're mad, and the same day your emotions just go like crazy. And
Right.
but I guarantee you're going to miss it when it's done and your kid's
Yep.
off at college playing for college.
There's the big one. Yep.
You're
Um,
going to miss. This is
so
fun.
it is, so as we wrap up today, so we're wrapping up chapter 7. Again, the title of chapter 7 is Sabotaging Athletic Performance. And the quote that you led off with is discomfort leads to growth. So just in a wrap up as a final statement, what else do you think, kind of just is going to wrap up the chapter 7 for us?
Well, I think it would be meaningful if we sit down with the athletes, have them do a life skill assessment,
Mm-hmm.
and then start to pick apart some of the things that you think are a little bit weaker, and have them obviously do that, the Googling idea that we talked about. But yeah, enjoy that process. Obviously, those are all very important when they go to school. When they go off to college, they're going to need to be the kind of kid that can solve their own problems. We want them to be independent problem solvers.
Yep.
So they're not dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's what you're trying to create. You want your children to solve their own problems at home, because when they get on the court, then they're going to be very comfortable solving problems.
Yep.
So try not to be a helicopter parent. Try not to be the kind of parent that thinks you're doing a good thing by hovering over and doing every little thing for your child. You're actually stunting their growth.
Yeah, this idea of preparing your child to enter into battle, so
Yeah.
in a sense. And as a parent, that can be hard if all you want to do is protect your child, excuse me. But that idea of the preparation, and that's another word that we've used, I think, probably in every show. Yeah, but where does that confidence go back to? Where do these things link up?
That's where it stems from, isn't it? Confidence,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You remember the old Navy SEALs quote? They have it. I live in down by San Clemente, and there's Camp Pendleton right down here in Southern California. But on the wall at the Marine bases, we don't rise to the occasion; we sink to the level of our training.
Yes. Yes.
And that's great for athletes, isn't it?
It sure is. I mean, that and it's a statement that might make people kind of stop for a minute and be like, wait, what? And then you go, oh, that's really true.
Yeah.
You're just gonna go back into
Your habits and your
comfort zones again. Like
yeah.
The routines, the rituals, that's where you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good one.
Well, Frank, thank you so much. Chapter 7, this has been wonderful to talk through with you. Thank you for getting into some of the deeper insights to what you've said in this chapter. We look forward to chapter 8 coming soon. And again, we be on the lookout, because we have more exciting work coming from Frank in the future. Whether you're following us on YouTube or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, thank you so much for watching, and we appreciate you. We're here for you. So thanks for listening. Yeah. And Frank, thank you so much. Yeah. All right.